For you, if you could recommend two or three of the highest leverage kind of occult tools or technologies that a man should take on to transform his life,
Mm,
what would you recommend? What would be the
mm.
highest leverage?
It's a good question. It's a very good question. There are many different areas I can go into here. I suppose
Mm,
just believe for clarification, occult I believe to be, in the way I define it, is secular, nuanced pieces of information that the general public are not privy to, right? As
yeah.
opposed to images of witches and men with goat heads. So
No,
the
no, yeah,
satanic
I think of like
rituals.
occult, like hidden knowledge, like
Precisely,
esoteric. I
precisely.
mean, that can be as simple as prayer, for example. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm,
I truly believe that to be incongruence with our definition here. So I think I mean I want to talk about meditation because I really feel meditation is just something that is so powerful, so transformative. I've
mm,
often said, irrespective of where you are in life, if you're at the bottom of the barrel, what would be the most definitive piece of information, tip, or trick, or insight you could give to somebody? What would you tell somebody? They're behind on your rent. What do you do? What do
mm,
you do? And I always say to them, get present, be here,
100%.
be here.
Mm,
Right? There is nothing that is more important than what's happening right now. Right.
yes.
And the only way that you can actualize that, because people say, what do you mean presence? Again, talking about words being very, very limiting in describing what
Mm,
presence truly is you have to practice it. You have to
mm,
practice it. It's a skill. It is a skill.
yes.
And unfortunately, we have been trained in a very different skill, especially in the West, and maybe even
Mm,
permeating some areas of the East, is we have started to become trained in the antithesis of presence and focus, which is distraction, right?
yeah. Mm,
And your attention is very, very valuable. It's very, very valuable.
mm,
Why are these big tech companies paying billions and billions of dollars into
mm.
tools and technology that will seek to rob you of that, right?
And they're doing
Because
it in a very specific way because they know how powerful attention is, and they know precisely how to program it in a way which captures the most attention at
mhm,
the to the deficit of your well-being.
100%. And
Mm,
and maybe people will feel like this isn't maybe incongruence with our definition of occultism being secular pieces of information that the masses don't understand or maybe aren't aware of.
mm,
It is your energy, it is your life force,
mm,
right? I think Joe Dispenza, an author I very, very much like, used to say
mm.
something like, where your attention goes, your energy flows. Your
Yep.
attention goes, your energy
Mm,
flows. And if
mm,
you're constantly, it's a very psychic thing you're doing when you're looking
mm,
at phones, when you're looking at screens. You're having this real, energetic, spiritual interface with something that is
mm,
robbing you of your life energy,
mm,
right? It takes a lot of energy to actually divert to your senses, to actually have to
mm,
have visual input. It
mhm,
requires energy. You're burning calories in order to be able to use that medium, right?
mm,
And
mm,
what's really interesting is when you close off the senses, right? You have all this
mm,
energy pouring outwards. What if you did the opposite effect? You closed everything down and you started pouring that energy inwards.
mhm,
And that's what really hit the nail in the coffin for me in terms of meditations is that you can develop what Steiner used to call spiritual organs. You can develop
mm,
spiritual organs. You start to flex your spiritual muscles, right?
mm,
And you start developing this higher connection with divine, with God, with cosmos, with universe, with energy, whatever you want to call it. And the real I'm trying to maybe go in an area where I can convince people because it's so much fun. Serendipity and synchronicity follows me every single day.
mm.
These kind of like the only way I can describe it is you just feel lucky. You just start to feel
100%.
lucky. It's
Mhm,
it's so strange to maybe convey to somebody, but when you start thinking consciously about something that you would like to happen or might be interesting to experience,
mm,
the universe gives it to you
mm,
when you're in these moments, when your karmic debt is low, when you understand the nature of reality and who you are through presence, through meditation,
mm,
you start to come to the truth, which
mhm,
is coming back to my initial tweet, which everybody got very, very angry at me, is that you are God. And I mean that in the sense, I don't mean that from the sense of my ego. I mean it from the sense of my soul, that you're a creator. You have his powers. You have the divine's powers of creation. And your mind is a medium. It's like your mind is like a spell book, and you can just write, what you want in that spell book, and reality gives it to you on a plate. So I won't go too much into that. I'm just actually quick comment for yourself if you feel some kind of semblance in that.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And everything you're saying is completely true. I wrote a thread on Twitter, how to 10x your luck. And essentially, it's you get very present, you align yourself with love, because love is the underlying fabric of reality. And anytime you have a deep conversation or a peak experience, or maybe a psychedelic experience or a deep meditation, what is the unifying quality? It's this kind of feeling of love and everything okayness. And I think this could be a very, very powerful mental reframe for a lot of people. This is taken directly from the master key system.
Okay.
You are not the individual self. You are the eternal I, which is housed in the body, the physical vessel, and it has the mind, which is split into two things, which is the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. Now, we tend to overly rely on the conscious mind.
Yeah.
And it has three main duties. Number one is discernment, making decisions, identifying the highest leverage things to do. The second one is to guard the subconscious mind from any external influence which is going to rob you of your power. Things like social media and comparison and all this kind of stuff, doom scrolling, whatever it may be, TV, news. And the third is to imprint your will onto the subconscious mind, which is this eternal I. It's connected to all the creative and energetic forces of the universe. And so by your very nature of being this eternal I, you are all health, all wealth, and all love. Now imagine if every single time that you're in a queue, or you're waiting in traffic, or you're in the elevator, instead of spacing out and kind of going into these unconscious patterns of thought which propagate your trauma and your anxieties, you say to yourself, I am all health, I am all wealth, and I am all love. Imagine that mental reframe. Do you really think that you're not going to see dramatic change operating from that kind of place? So this idea that we are not this individual separate self, but we are the eternal I, and we are connected to all energies that we need. Aligning yourself with this is how you start to get very lucky. You 10x your luck. And also you become more present. And the universe is always presenting these little hints as to where you should be going, or perhaps these little events which are very, very beneficial. But if you're constantly in your own head and you're always lost in thought, you're never going to see them. And so you're missing out so many opportunities by not being present.
I love it. So, I think that's a really, really palatable way for maybe the average Western consumer to understand. I love that. Your subconscious mind is fertile soil for any idea that you give it. So make sure that you're giving it good seeds. And exactly. What I think I'll do is, I suppose my audience will be mad at me for not mentioning the power of sexual energy in relation to maybe occult practices that we should be mindful of. And the way I got this is very, very simple, is that energy can neither be created nor destroyed, right? Everything just transforms, it's interchangeable. And my reasoning for what would you say, practicing some form of sexual abstinence or celibacy has been in acknowledgement and realization from my anecdotal experience that this is true, right? And that's the way, for anybody who's still maybe coming to grips with their own shame, or maybe can't accept this idea, is from that scientific perspective, right? Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. When you die, when Joseph dies and his body dies, right, it is going to be food for bacteria and microorganisms in the earth to take me back, and I will be in everything. I will be in everything. Yeah. I don't you don't throw me away. No, I go into everything. I permeate everything. And the same way you have to look at, what you're doing consciously with your sexual energy. So, and I believe, maybe going back to my other point here, and this is maybe a very esoteric idea, but I feel this has a kind of what would you say, an increased effect on this idea of being lucky and creating your reality, is, I think, and this is just a theory, I think your spine is I think the human body is a magnet. I think the human body is a magnet. You have a positive pole and you have a negative pole, right? The strength of your magnetism is dependent on the energies on those two poles, right? Meaning, if this is scrambled, if this is incoherent, if this isn't present, if this isn't powerful, if this is steeped in neurosis, the energy of this is going to be lessened. If you're sexually empty, if you're engaging in promiscuity and casual sex, if you're watching pornography, if you're constantly emptying yourself of your sexual energy, then your negative pole is empty. There's no charge there, right? In order to expand the field of your magnetic field, those two things, you have to have an understanding of them, and you have to keep them, somewhat intact, somewhat respected, somewhat upholding the innate powers of what they can do to create life. That's something that
100%.
never fails to leave me speechless, is that we talked about the creative powers of God. I can create people. You can create people. You can create the next generation of the human race. Do you not believe that is not an inconsequential power that you have? That is not an inconsequential power you have when you think about that, right?
It's very powerful. It's very powerful, and it makes me almost well up a little bit, because actually I've just me and my wife, we've been trying to make a baby, and we have made a baby, and we were reflecting upon this very concept today. And we were watching the video about how it kind of grows and transforms, and yes, that that ability to be able to create a life form is just insane. And if you actually look at the development of a baby as it throughout its lifespan, it's mind-blowing. And to sit there and watch that and not to come to the conclusion that there is some sort of intelligent design behind all of this is, well, I mean, for me anyway, it doesn't make sense. I won't say it's foolish or anything like that, but yeah, no, I think another really potent thing for young men is, because we are so stimulated by a video or an image, psychologically, neurologically, we're very stimulated by that. Abstaining from this gives you immense confidence and momentum. And if you can, like, all right, I didn't watch pornography today. Okay, well, that's a small win. And how do you create momentum in your life? How do you create this kind of rocket fuel to go to this next stage? Well, you compound these small wins into each other, and you make that snowball effect. Well, you start the snowball effect, and it goes and it goes and it goes. And now all of a sudden you're like, it's really hard to doubt yourself or to feel a lack of confidence or even like a sense of shame if you keep winning in these small ways. And you're like, yeah, I'm a man of value. I'm winning constantly. And your testosterone and your dopamine are all going to respond to that in a positive way, I would imagine.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm really pleased you brought up the emotional side of things as well, because I believe it's maybe one that doesn't get talked about enough in relation to this kind of practice, and also the endocrinology behind what's actually happening in your body when you're doing this. So just on so many different levels of what you're receiving that life force energy. So starting with the emotional element is that if you're less in these, I'm not sure how familiar you are with people like David Hawkins and his consciousness scale.
Yeah.
But he made this remark on how low you're vibrating if you are in shame, if you are in apathy, you're in. I call that hell. I call that hell. I think that's hell on earth. Right. And then the mitigation of some of these lower negative emotions, once you again get 1 day free, 2 day free, you start to move up to courage, and then you get past courage and you get to peace and tranquility and all these higher emotions. That internal mental monologue and feeling that you have in yourself is almost transformative of how you relate to yourself, and you find yourself with, more confidence, you can start to speak to women, and you don't get that social anxiety anymore. And of course, as that's happening, on the other side of the coin, you look inside the body, the endocrinology of your hormones, your testosterone is responding to that. Your androgen receptors become more sensitive to the permeation of that molecule, and you're getting heightened masculine characteristics. Your bones are getting denser, your muscle is growing. Your vocal cords might just start get deeper, which adds to your confidence even more. So you talk about compounding effect. Fuck yes. There's a compounding effect. 100%.
There is 100%. Yeah, when do you know what? I was always a pretty confident guy, just by default. When I was a kid, I'd just go up to big groups of people. Like when I joined like the Cub Scouts, I joined football teams. I'd just go football tournaments. I'd just go up to like a group of 20 people and be like, "Hey, my name's Lee. What's up? Let's be friends." When my father got diagnosed with terminal cancer, my confidence completely fell away. I couldn't speak to anybody without going bright red in the face, and it was a real problem. I was crippled. I had crippling social anxiety, essentially. And this was at a time, because I'm 33, that, we didn't know what anxiety was. We didn't know what depression was. That wasn't really in the lingo at the time. Nobody thought about that, at least not in circles that I was in, anyway. So, and yeah, so you can definitely go from this place of a lack of confidence and this sort of severe social anxiety. By the way, notice when you feel very anxious, you feel this incredible sense of solidity in the body and in your identity, this incredible sense of separation. And going back to what we were talking about earlier, the more separate you are, the more you suffer. And when you're in a calm, and what you were saying earlier about presence, I think is really powerful. I think realistically, objectively, in 99.9% of situations, the most powerful quality that you can bring is deep presence and deep relaxation, deep calm. We admire these people who can flow through life in this seemingly effortless way. And how do they do that? They're not relying on the conscious mind. They're relying purely on the subconscious. They're just channeling the divine. They're not in any, as soon as you start overly relying on the conscious and you start trying to think too much about stuff, you're like a deer in the headlights. You freeze up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, presence and calm. If you can, these two skills, although we are talking from quite an esoteric, sort of perhaps even mystical lens for a lot of this conversation, presence and deep relaxation in any situation is the most practical thing that you can possibly work towards. Any situation, job interviews, women, whatever, doesn't matter. Creating, doesn't matter.
And just to add, because I think that's a beautiful point to end on, and also to maybe put the final nail in the coffin for somebody to think, oh, maybe I should go to the meditation. As I was reading, I believe it's called The Science of Enlightenment by Shinzen Young, and one of the first chapters he talked about is meditation is the most transferable skill you can learn, meaning there is nothing you can do that is not going to involve an element of presence, focus, and relaxation. It makes everything better. Everything. You're a golfer, great. More presence, more focus, more relaxation. You're a businessman closing sales calls, great. More presence, more relaxation. Anything.
Meta skills.
The
meta skills. Yeah. If you want to find the highest leverage thing and start pulling it to get the most benefit for your life, you do meditation. Because it, like you say, it applies to every single area of your life. It makes you everything from a better husband to a better lover to a better salesperson, just like you're saying. Whatever it may be. It makes you a better human. And then it allows you to transcend your humanity and see the next level.